Hello again. I just came back from working out and I got cleaned up. So you guys get me in my post workout glory with wet hair and all. Um, I feel like we are in day 562 of the coronavirus. I know that it has not been that long, but it feels like it. Holy crap! I know everyone is sick of it. Like I don't know anybody who's not sick of this. So whether you're talking about it or having to deal with quarantine or whatever, everyone's sick about it. Oh my gosh. So let's talk about it some more. All right, so let's go. Let's talk about this. So Jerome Powell, who is the chair of the Federal Reserve, came out with a prepared statement today. And he talked about how the whole situation with the economy is so vastly different now than we have had with any other crises in the past. So, like the savings and loan crisis, the Great Depression, the financial crisis of '08, like those were a result of financial decisions, financial regulations, financial mishaps, whatever, however you want to describe it. Those were those crises were caused because of financial reasons. The economy right now is being affected by a virus and the reaction to that virus. And so he goes on to talk about how this is different. But then he talks about, how we're trying to use monetary and fiscal policy to help, with the U.S. economy. But the solutions that he's referring to are the same solutions that we used during, these other crises that were financially derived. So I'm just like, why are you using the same solutions here when this is a whole different situation um, compared to the financial situations? Why are we not using different solutions to address this for the U.S. economy? Because to me, I'm like, if this is so different, which it really is, we've never shut down the economy like this. Um, and so, if this is so different, then we need different solutions. He goes to talk about how they've cut the rates. They're trying to make sure there's ample amount of liquidity. They've lowered the reserve requirements for banks. They're making sure small businesses have access to loans, and all of this. And he's talked about how the rate for the Federal Reserve, the federal funds rate, is between 0.25%. Now, of course, it's not zero because again, it can't be, but it's within that range. Now, up to the point that Trump was pushing Jerome Powell around, I had respect for Powell. He had been standing up to Trump quite publicly. And then last year, he caved multiple times to the White House pressure, which not a fan. So I was not happy that Jerome Powell did that. And because he cut those rates, when he dropped the rates during the whole coronavirus situation down to 0.25%, it wasn't as effective in my mind. It's not as effective as it would have been had he just had the rates up higher in the first place before all this occurred. Because that rate drop, because he had continuously cut that rate drop from where it was to where it is now wasn't that big of a drop. And so so that's where I'm like, I don't think it's going to be as effective as it was during the financial crisis. And then at the very end of his remarks, he puts a plug in for the stimulus package that's being discussed right now, which not a fan. I wasn't a fan of the 2.2 trillion stimulus, and I'm definitely not a fan of the 3 trillion stimulus that is being proposed in Congress right now by the House. And so, and let me explain why I'm not a fan. So I told you guys in my last video or a couple videos ago that when they did the 2.2 trillion, by the time that they actually got the money out to the people, like this would pretty much start getting over. And that's, half of the country still haven't received their checks. And then they're like, oh, let's push out more money. I'm like, you haven't given checks to everybody yet. And then you're now trying to push more money out. And again, to me, like that 2.2 trillion. Okay, you have to remember, not all of that went to people, like to the individual taxpayers. Large portion of that went to trying to prop up businesses during the whole shutdowns. And you had 500 million going to big businesses and 360 million going to small businesses. It's like, why are you not giving, 500 billion, not million, and 360 billion. I'm like, why aren't you giving more money to the small businesses? Also, on top of that, they were funding all these other programs that had nothing to do with the economy or with small businesses or with the coronavirus. They're just spending money all over the place. Now they want to do another 3 trillion. Make no mistake, that 3 trillion, not all 3 trillion is going to go into the hands of the taxpayers. A lot of it is going to go into other programs that Congress wants to fund. Like, this is the problem. You guys don't get a blank check to go ahead and spend our money on whatever you feel like spending it on. If you're going to spend that 3 trillion, that whole 3 trillion better come back to the taxpayers. And that's not what's happening here, folks. So this is the problem that I have with the stimulus idea. To me, it's not a good idea, and I never thought it was. I'm still a big proponent of they should just freeze the rents. That's what they should be doing. If they're going to pass a bill, that's what it should be doing, is freezing rents, and they can use some of the stimulus money that they would have been passing. A fraction of that could just go to help the mortgage companies while they're floating everybody through this whole situation. And that would be a lot cheaper, so much cheaper than us sending, checks to everybody. And that would help, I think, alleviate a lot of the anxiety and pressure right now that a lot of Americans are feeling that are out of jobs. Again, they're getting their unemployment check and they got one stimulus check, but that's not enough to cover, rent and food. If the main goal is to keep people from getting pushed into poverty and homelessness, then freeze the rents. That's pretty simple. And not freeze the rents like some of these mortgage companies have proposed, where you freeze rents for like 3 months, but then at the end of the third month, you have to pay all the 3 months plus your current month of rent. It's like, what? That doesn't make any sense. These people don't have jobs. Like, that's why they're freezing their rent, because they can't pay it. And then you're expecting like 3 months worth of payments, technically 4 months worth of payments, all up front. Like, that's illogical. So obviously, I'm a big fan of just push out those rent payments and just extend the time frame of the loan to include like an additional 3 months. And this way, one, we're not spending frivolous, money, and Congress isn't allowed to just spend frivolous money. And two, it's really going to help the American people. And that's supposed to be the real goal of these stimulus bills, but they're not really helping people, at least not at the time that they need it. They really, again, need to be looking at other solutions that are different than the solutions that we've used against, financial crises. And so, to me, like, it's a big waste of everyone's time and money that they're trying to pass these stimulus bills that really are not going to help people quickly enough, and not to the level that they really need. I mean, you're talking about, like, I think the estimation was like 30 million Americans are out of jobs, like, in a matter of 2 months. That is unreal. And so they need help immediately. And to say that, well, we'll go ahead and pass this bill, but the whole 3 trillion isn't for everybody. Only part of it, for sending out to people. Part of it will be for loans, and then a whole bunch of it will be for funding programs that nobody cares about at this point. And so they're just taking this as an opportunity to spend whatever they want, and that's not okay. So we should be really, calling your representatives and just telling them, like, no, you vote no on this, because there are other options that they have not bothered to explore, and those other options could be much more a solution, a more effective solution, an efficient solution for everybody. Because the problem we're having is, again, I've talked about debt in the past. If it's relative, like, as long as everyone else is going into debt as much as we are, and it's all relative, then it doesn't mess with our currency valuation. It doesn't mess with our creditability and all of that. But right now we are spending so much, and the other countries, although they're spending some, they're not spending to the level we're spending. And so this is, now we're not on parity, we're not on par with everybody else. We're starting to have disparity. And so I'm not a fan of the stimulus idea at all. Really, we really just need to get the economy open back up. There's, so many unintended consequences that people are not realizing, like Congress is not realizing, because they're not feeling really the effects of it. But right now, one of the biggest ones that are that's coming down the road, and it's actually already started to manifest, is the food shortage. So there is just so much concern about, having millions, tens and tens and tens of millions of people being pushed into starvation. And that is because people are forgetting, and again, Congress and all these policymakers, like, they are forgetting that the global economy and the US economy, it's all like an assembly line. Okay, you cannot stop one and think the rest of the line can keep working. It doesn't work that way. And so now that there's been major disruptions to the food industry, you've got people, not just at home, but abroad, that are being threatened with starvation. And I can't emphasize this enough. Like, we need to reopen the economy. You can take safety measures, but you need to reopen it. This is no longer an option, because everyone's talking about, oh, well, we're trying to save lives. But the economy is saving lives. Having the economy open does save lives. And so people are not realizing that this isn't about money. This is about people's lives as well. When you're opening up the economy, you get money flowing, you get goods and products flowing, you get, that is how it has been designed, and that's how we have structured it. So when you all of a sudden cut off, one part of the assembly line, it's going to halt process of production of everything else. And food cannot be stopped, but yet we're having big disruptions. So this is what I'm talking about. Like this, there are so many unintended consequences that are coming up, about, and we're really not discussing them. The cost of food, the cost of groceries have skyrocketed. This is the most that it has increased since the 1970s, and yet nobody's talking about it. and so here are Americans that are now out of jobs, and they still have to pay rent. They haven't gotten their stimulus check, and they still have to buy food, but food costs are increasing. Do you see the problem here? Like, this is about saving lives. This is not when people are saying, well, it's about, we need to flatten the curve, we need to save lives, so we need to close the economy. No, you are going to hurt more people than help right now. And so at the time when we need, food costs to be the lowest, it's skyrocketing. And I've told you guys before, these financial, like any crises that affect the economy, they disproportionately will affect the lower income people way more than they do the upper income people. And so, here food prices are increasing, and here the lower income people are already struggling, and then we increase the food price. Do you see the problem? Like, we can't have, there's so many facets to the US economy. It's not just one thing, there's a trillion things. And so when you affect, like something like jobs and closing down shops, it's gonna have a huge ripple effect. And I think people don't realize like how devastating this really can be, because we've never experienced a situation like this ever. And so and you know, I've told you guys before, the longer this drags out, the worse and harder it will be for us to get out of it. And that still holds true. We need to open up the economy and get back to business. Otherwise, I think we are going to have a situation, like a recovery that we have never experienced, and not in a good way. And so there's my 2 cents on the economy there. Okay, so let's talk about the markets. So the markets have kept moving upward, and then again they're taking like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We keep staying within a certain range, and that's largely because the economy still isn't fully open, so we can't move forward. We're kind of stuck in this limbo, and until the economy opens, that's where we're going to be with the market as well. It's just going to stay stagnant, and the longer that stays stagnant, the worse this will be for everybody in the long run. So we really need to get the markets moving and get the economy going. So again, it's kind of staying stagnant. We've again rebounded from the bottom, but we haven't moved too far above it. Not anywhere near levels we were before all of this happened. And so and again, until we see more of the economy open and really try to get back to normal, we're going to continue to see the markets just stagnate, and that can be dangerous. You're talking, this is money for people who are ready to retire, and now like they've taken a huge hit and it's not bouncing back. The financial crisis after the 08 crisis, 09, like it was popping. But as far as this is showing, we're not showing the same movements that we saw back then. So, and I'm not talking like in absolute numbers, I'm talking in trend wise. Like we're not seeing this movement upward like we did with after the 08 financial crisis. We are just kind of like moving along this way. And so instead of a V-shaped recovery, we are starting to see more of an L shape on the markets, which is less than ideal. So if you don't know what that means, go ahead and look back at my videos. I've done a couple of videos about the markets and the coronavirus, and it's explained there what that means. So, all right, as always, if you guys have any questions, put them in the comment section below. Hit that subscribe button, and I will talk with you guys later.